Sneakers and Cleats, the podcast.
Welcome back to the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. This is Monday, June 2nd. This is episode 201. Don Harris, Matt Roy on tap. Don, how was your weekend?
It was great, Matt. Really enjoyed it. Kind of chilled out. Saw my grandbaby. And, man, babies grow fast.
How old is she now? 3 months?
Almost. Yeah.
3 months
2.5.
or so? Finally gaining some weight, getting all
Gaining
fat.
some weight. Sitting in, the big accomplishment went from her stomach rolled over on her own to her back, and it's got her head up and smiling a lot more. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. Bob can do that. Yeah. I'm not sure I can anymore.
Did you see, speaking of babies, did you see Scotty Scheffler won the Memorial?
Yeah.
And when his wife Meredith gave him the baby with a blowout all the way up the baby's back?
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, so she was handing him the baby, and you could hear, Javi, you zooming in there, Javi?
I'm not. I don't know what to do.
All right, well, getting up close and personal today.
It's doing it on its own.
Yeah. Anyway, so Scotty wins the Memorial, and then his wife has the baby, Bennett, and is coming over to give him a kiss and whatnot, and he grabs the baby, and he's like, he's got poop up his back. Just be careful. And you can see the brown spot on the baby's back. It's really funny. Anyway, my weekend was great. Not as good as Scotty's, probably better than Bennett's. We went down sailing. My brother-in-law and his girlfriend are here this weekend, so we went sailing down the Comal. Floating down the Comal.
I don't think it was a sailing.
We were sailing. No, we went floating down the Comal, and then we went to
tubing. Is the correct
we went
word.
to Pinkerton's yesterday.
Nice.
We went to El Mirasol on Saturday. Got some chispas. So
hard to beat that.
hard to beat chispas. Yeah, we're good.
I think it's chispa singular. If you have two, you're Ubering.
So we all had one, and then we split a second one.
Okay.
Like there was one that we all took some sips of.
1.25.
1.25. Yeah.
Okay.
But that was for lunch, so we were all good by dinner time.
Yeah.
And then we went to took him to the Alamo, to Riverwalk, all that stuff. So did all the touristy things. I got to tell you, if I go to the Alamo again, it'll be too soon. Between my mom coming, my sister, my grandma, my Jordan's family, like I've been to the Alamo and done the Riverwalk thing so many times that I just don't ever want to do it ever again.
This is a true story. I hate to say this. I've lived in San Antonio for 50 years. We moved here in 1975. The first year we lived in San Antonio, I went to the Alamo on a 4th grade field trip. I have never been back.
Seriously?
Seriously.
You haven't been there in basically 50 years? 45 years?
I have been to the outside of it, shooting stand-ups and stories, like when the Final Four was here and teams were here. And I remember Vince Carter and his Carolina team went and visited, and we did a story on them when they were walking around down there. But no, never been back inside since the 4th grade.
Got to tell you, you're not missing much.
Emily Balcom, shout out Emily Balcom.
Everyone go visit the Alamo, but it will take you about 15 minutes to get through. Anyway, so we got a lot of things going on as normal. NBA on TNT wrapped up this weekend, so that...
Hold on. Bob, Javier, how many times you guys been to the top of the Tower of the Americas?
Once.
You've never been to the top of the Tower of Americas?
Just to do it.
It might crumble.
Yeah,
So.
right?
Yeah, well, I'm scared of heights. So
You're scared of heights.
So am I.
And the fact that elevator breaks, there's no fucking...
F-bomb alert.
Good thing Javi doesn't have a mic.
Sorry,
You're putting more edit work on me to bleep it out.
That's okay.
How long has it been since you've been to the top of the Tower of Americas?
20 years.
What is wrong with you guys? Well, maybe I'm new here.
I went when I was in basic training. I was
Yeah.
here, and I think me and the girlfriend went up there, and that.
Yeah.
I went up there for dinner.
There's a good restaurant up there now.
Yeah, Chart House.
is
I went up there for dinner earlier this year. I think it was earlier this year for someone's birthday, but like just on my own, I think I took Jordan there for our first Valentine's Day in San Antonio. But since then, I haven't gone up there for much.
Yeah.
But
Those are a couple of things, you live in San Antonio, You think everybody
but
think you do it, but
Jay Avala's stories have scared most of us from going up there. So that's what we're gonna do to get rid of.
Have to climb out of the elevator to get on the ladder.
We're gonna get sued for defamation by the city or something like that. Anyway,
I just know they have stairs. They do have stairs because there's a tower climb every year.
I would never. Nope. You couldn't pay me enough money to do that. Well, how much money would it take for someone to be like, go climb those stairs to the top of the Tower of Americas? How much would they have to pay you? It's 750 feet.
Yeah.
Ish.
What is it? A couple miles? Is it no? It's like
750 feet. You would have to assume it's 750 stairs.
Oh yeah. How many stories is that? 30?
A lot.
50?
At least. It's basically like climb to the top of the Grand Hyatt.
Yeah, maybe in my younger days. I couldn't do it now.
My hammy hurts just sitting here. Anyway, NBA on TNT wrapped up this weekend. Talk a little bit about the greatest show on TV and if it will stay the greatest show when it moves over to ESPN next year. More trade speculation for the Spurs. ESPN put out an article today. What would it take for the Spurs to trade up to number 1 to get Cooper Flagg? Maybe a little bit less than you might think. So talk about that. And UTSA athletics. What a weekend for Pat Hallmark and the UTSA baseball team, knocking off Texas not once, but twice for the 3rd time this season.
Unbelievable.
Absolutely stunning. They won their first regional in program history. Now going to the Supers in LA this weekend. So we'll talk about that. And a little bit more of a larger discussion about what does UTSA have to do to continually compete on the national level like this in all sports, not just baseball and not just football, but girls basketball and all these things. What do they have to do to be in the same breath as the Texases, the A&Ms, the Baylors, all those things? So we'll talk about all that. Let's talk about NBA on TNT first. So after 36 years, the NBA on TNT wrapped up this past weekend. Shaq, Ernie, Kenny, and Charles will still be together, but they will be on ESPN and ABC. Charles mentioned on Dan Patrick, I think it was today, that they'll be working probably a third or half as much as they currently do. So ESPN is also going to have another show, apparently, not just Kenny, Charles, Shaq, and Ernie. So as only Ernie can, he wrapped up phenomenally on Saturday night after the Pacers beat the Knicks to go to the NBA Finals. This is what Ernie had to say before Shaq ruined it.
We have members of our crew who are going to go work at NBC or work at Amazon. And you know how they got those jobs? Because their resume says NBA on TNT. So thank you. We have been honored to do this. And we look forward. Look, the 4 of us, as you've already heard, the 4 of us are going to be together. Our production crew is going to be together. It's going to be that same bunch. We're still going to be shooting that show in Atlanta. It's just going to air somewhere else. And so the craziness that you've seen, the nonsense and the foolishness and the top-notch basketball analysis, all of that stuff's going to be on. It's going to be on ESPN or ABC next year, not on TNT. For that, it's we're sad. But I'm proud to say for the last time, thanks for watching us. It's the NBA on TNT.
Before we go, guys, let's do the mic drop.
It was so good. Ernie did such a great job, and then Shaq Tony Romo'd it.
Has to get the last word.
He couldn't wait. Like, it was literally like 0.25 seconds. It was a quarter of a second after Ernie stopped
talking. If he would have just stood up and dropped the mic with Kenny or just like waved him down without talking, it would have been fine.
Yeah. But anyway, Ernie is the best. He wins Sportscaster of the Year every year for a reason.
I've known Ernie a long time. I consider him a friend. I sent him a note saying you're probably getting 1,000 emails, but just wanted to say, great run, and I know this is going to continue, and blah, 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 blah. And he emailed me back this weekend, and he said, appreciate that, Don. It's been a great ride. Probably won't be the same, but I'm hoping it will.
Yeah. I mean, he's phenomenal. The whole show is phenomenal. It's sad that it's over in this respect in this kind of capacity? Because it's not going to be the same on ESPN.
So TV insiders, those of us in the business who notice these kind of things, have known for years that the Turner production crew that he brags about so greatly has been light years ahead of any other network when it came to their set designs, when it came to their lighting, when it came to the technology, the big board, the Gone Fishing animations and everything that they've done.
Everything that ESPN tries to replicate now with their graphics team.
Turner was way ahead of that in those guys almost got a new set every season. And it was groundbreaking, the technology. The way they turn tweets around with memes and stuff that quickly and make graphics and superimpose Barkley's head over a fat baby or whatever they're doing, right?
Yeah.
It's so quick and so good that my hope is the show stays exactly the same in that regard because it's going to be produced in Atlanta in the Turner Studios. It's going to still be in Studio J. It's going to be all their people, and it's just being licensed to ESPN. Now, what ESPN does with it is going to be different probably because of the length of commercial breaks and when they run it and everything. But I'm hoping that the show, the way it's constructed now, survives, and that ESPN, if ESPN was smart, they wouldn't touch it. They would just say, we're just going to pick up your signal. You guys continue to do exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, but they have all the different obligations with sponsors and all that stuff that they have to get in.
Yeah, and it will be sponsored, but like EJ Stat of the Night, all those kind of things, I hope they keep it the same, license it, and just that it just airs there. Now, if they try to stick Stephen A on that set, or if they try to incorporate their people somehow, it's going to be a disaster. Don't mess with it. It's the best show in the history of television sports.
Speaking of people who think that it's going to get messed up, Bill Simmons from The Ringer, formerly of ESPN, thinks that it's going to get effed up.
I think ESPN's going to the show up. I don't care if I get aggregated.
Zag. I didn't understand.
I think they're going to the show up. I don't think they unless they completely change how they do commercials, the show is going to be different and people are going to be pissed, and Barkley and those guys are going to be pissed, and I think it's going to go badly. The only way it doesn't go badly is if they do the commercials and they give them the lengthy segments that you need to have that show work. They're going to have to change how they do it. They just paid so much for the NBA that if they don't do that and they do these same short, terrible segments that you're about to see in the finals, where it's like a 1.5 minute halftime and it's like a 20-minute pregame, if they do that, they're going to the show up and everybody's going to be mad. If they mess with any piece of this, everyone's going to be mad.
Right.
And that's the part that I can't wait to watch. Like, even like little insignificant stuff, if we feel like it's different anyway, people would be mad.
To me, you have to keep the free-flowing nature of it. Like, the four of them together are just so funny together. Ernie is the ringleader, and Charles is obviously Charles, and Shaq does his own thing, and Kenny, I feel like Kenny is just there for comedic relief too. But it's the camaraderie between the four of them.
Yeah, and look, Kenny's my least favorite of the four, but when he's gone, it's not the same.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a magic to their chemistry that, I once had a news director who gave us all a book called Raving Fans, and it was about your P1s, your fans that watch. Like, my wife was one of those when it came to Hoda, right? And Oprah had them. Oprah had people that made an appointment every day at 4:00 to watch that show, and there are so few examples of. My buddies up in Dallas have it with their radio program. It's been #1 for years, where you don't miss. That is your show. That is your guy. And this show is the most special of anybody that I can think of. Maybe since Walter Cronkite on CBS Evening News, where that's your guys. And the finals aren't the same to me. Mm-hmm. I watch the finals games, but I don't watch pregame shows, postgame shows. Because I just try to avoid Stephen A. and all the screaming and all that stuff. But these guys, Man, they have built something that's absolutely magic.
Yeah, you can't mess with that. And this is a huge opportunity for ESPN to gather those people back. Like ESPN's lost a lot of viewership over the last few years because of things that they try and do. And people have gravitated towards Shaq, Ernie, Kenny, and Charles because they are just authentically them. Like that's just who they are. That's who you get all the time. And so if you try and mess with that, if you try and put Stephen A on or Kendrick Perkins on or, do whatever you're going to do with the show, it's just not going to be the same. And they have a huge opportunity to gather and take TNT's audience by taking their show.
Yeah.
Now you have to capitalize on that and not mess it up.
Not mess it up.
So
leave it the same. Like I said, hopefully Turner's in charge of producing it, in charge of the concept of it. It stays exactly the same, and they just pick it out of the sky on the satellite.
So Charles was talking to Dan Patrick today and said two things that were interesting. One, that they're going to be working with ESPN about a third or half the time that they were doing with TNT. The other thing was that Turner is thinking of having them do a show separate still, since their contract is still with Turner.
Yep.
So they might do, like, how on Sundays ESPN does a 3-hour pregame show before kickoff for football, but they don't actually air any games on Sundays. They just do the pregame show. They're thinking of having Charles, Kenny, Ernie, and Shaq do something like that, where they still do a pregame show, but they don't actually air the games.
Yeah, I guess you don't have to have rights to do that.
But they could, but they can't run highlights. So like, what are you going to be able to do?
Well,
But
they'll figure it out.
Long story short, don't mess it up.
No kidding. It's the best.
All right, let's talk about the Spurs here. So ESPN put out an article today that a couple of different scenarios for
Who's
the Mavericks.
Who's the writer?
It was a combination between Sean Marks, Jonathan Givony, and a couple of the other NFL or NBA
Bobby
people.
Marks.
Bobby Marks, sorry. Sean Marks is with the Nets.
And Jonathan Givony, and who else?
There was two other people.
Okay, and what was the headline?
It was basically projections that the Mavericks are likely to not trade number one, but if these trade offers would make them not hang up the phone quickly.
Okay. So it's speculation.
It's very speculation. So, but
fantasy football.
Fodder for things like this.
Okay.
The Mavs have said they're taking Cooper Flagg number one and that they're not going to trade the pick.
Duh.
However, if they were, what could possibly entice them to do it? And would the Spurs give this up in the first place? Obviously, everyone wants Cooper Flagg on their team. He's the most highly rated prospect since Wemby, and before Wemby, probably, I don't know, he's more than Ben Simmons was back in, 2016, 2018, whatever it was. The last time someone traded up to one was Markelle Fultz in 2017.
How'd that work out?
Not well. And that didn't really take a lot, but Fultz wasn't a huge prospect like Cooper Flagg was. He wasn't a consensus number one prospect. This is what they put out.
Let me guess. Can I guess?
Yeah, go. Well, I mean, you have it. You haven't looked at it, so
I haven't looked at it.
I love that I do rundowns. And
I would guess they would require Dallas to give up Cooper Flagg. Would require Castle and number 2 and additional picks.
No.
Okay.
No Castle.
Wow.
So this is what they suggested. Number 2, number 14. Hawks unprotected 2027 pick. And returning the swap rights with the Mavs 2030 pick. So, because right now the Spurs have the ability to swap picks with the Mavs in 2030.
So 4 really high picks.
So basically 4 first-round picks.
For Cooper Flagg. Huh.
But you're trading 2. So the question there is, 1, is that too much? I don't think so. I think that they could probably get more. But we all know Nico Harrison doesn't want top dollar. So
it depends on how much the Spurs value Cooper Flagg compared to Dylan Harper. And the more we talk about Dylan Harper, the more I think the gap narrows between Cooper Flagg and Dylan Harper. For a year, Cooper Flagg has been the guy, right? And he is. But the more we find out about Dylan Harper, I don't think the gap is that big. I think he's going to be a really good, from what I've heard from NBA scouts, he's going to be an all-star.
Well, here's the thing that scares me about that is I hate when stock rises on prospects after they're done on the court. You know what I mean? Like, we saw what these players were on the court this year. And the fact that during the last 3 months when Dylan Harper hasn't been playing at all and Cooper Flagg hasn't been playing at all, and now Dylan Harper's getting to that Cooper Flagg echelon. Obviously, he's not Cooper Flagg, but people are thinking about him higher now 3 months into the process. It scares me a little bit because that's when you see busts, because you had the tape. You had exactly what these players were all season.
I think that's media and that's people that cover it like us. The Spurs won't be swayed by that. They know who Dylan Harper is from when he was playing. George Felton and those guys that make the trips to practices like they did with Steph Castle his first week at UConn, and saw him in the City of Palms tournament when he was in high school. They've been looking at these guys since they were 16. So, and they travel and they go to their high school games and they go to their, so for all of us, Dylan Harper is a name that most of you learned after the lottery. And some of you knew during his senior year or his freshman year at Rutgers. For the Spurs, for their scouts, they've known about this kid's been on their radar for 3 or 4 years. And they've seen him play. They've seen him play multiple times. They know who he is. So when I say that, I mean, I'm not saying I think Cooper Flagg is head and shoulders or not head and shoulders above Harper. I'm saying this trade scenario depends on how the Spurs value Flagg, how they value Harper. If it's this, maybe they entertain it. I think this whole thing's a sham and just sports talk. I don't think it's even close to happening. But if it's this, then that 4 picks.
All right, congratulations. I just made you the GM of the San Antonio Spurs. What would you give up for one? It depends on how you value Cooper Flagg.
I would give up. I value Cooper Flagg very highly. I would give up 2 and probably 2 other picks. I might keep 14 in that situation.
Is there any number of picks you would not give up? Like, what's the max amount of trade capital?
I think 4 number ones is about the max.
They put in a reference in there that in 1993, when the Kings traded up for Chris Webber and Penny Hardaway went to the Magic, they swapped picks 1 and 3, and then there's 3 additional ones. That's what they based this trade off of.
That sounds about right.
I think the stopper is you're not going to trade Castle. You're obviously not going to trade Wemby. And you're not going to trade De'Aaron Fox. I think anything else that's not nailed down, those 3 are nailed down. I think anything else is on the table to trade up to 1. And then you have to have a limit with the number of picks you want. But also, the Mavs aren't going to – they're looking at this like, okay, we just got a lifeline. We just traded Luka and got Cooper Flagg.
Let me tell you
We're going to be competitive over the next 2 to 3 years with Cooper Flagg, with Anthony Davis, with Kyrie Irving.
If the Mavericks and Nico Harrison traded number 1 and Cooper Flagg, there would be
a mutiny.
They would storm the go into his offices and hang him. There's no way that the Mavericks would possibly trade this pick after what they did with Luka.
Unless they get Giannis.
It would be nope. They're not touching. They're not doing anything. They're taking Cooper Flagg and playing it safe. It's the only thing that Nico Harrison can do.
What do you think, or why do you think Dylan Harper is now rising and people are starting to be like, oh, he's similar level to Cooper Flagg?
I think that people are watching a lot of tape.
I think that because you said the evaluation's getting closer and closer. When the ping pong balls fell, it was Cooper Flagg, 50 feet of crap, and then everybody else. And now it's like Cooper Flagg, 10 feet of crap, Dylan Harper, and then everybody else. So why is he wading through all the crap?
He performed very well at the combine. He tested very well. He's longer than a lot of people thought. He's a little taller. He's a little stronger. He's lost 15 pounds of baby fat. And I think again, I don't think that's changed in reality for the scouts. I think it's changed for people like Jonathan Givony and the quote unquote experts that are writing about this stuff, because they're just now looking at more tape of him. But I think the scouts have made their opinion and had their opinions before before the lottery.
Fair enough.
I think those in the know, and again, we're not. None of us that do this profession know. It's the guys who do it for a living who knew Dylan Harper when he was 14.
Bobby Marks, Zach Cram, Kevin Pelton, Andre Snellings, by the way.
They don't know.
All right, let's get to the UTSA stuff now. Because I love talking about the Spurs, but I would love to talk about UTSA. One more time, congratulations to Pat Hallmark and the UTSA baseball team. Absolute dominant showing in the regional up in Austin. They were plus 360. I'm just pulling that number out. I think that was right. Plus 360 to win that regional because they were in it with number 2 Texas. They had already beaten Texas earlier in the season, 8-7 in extra innings. And sure enough, they come out with a victory over Kansas State on Friday, a victory, 9-6 victory or 9-7 victory on Saturday over Texas, and then they do it again on Sunday with a dominant showing. They were up 7-1 at one point with a 6-run third inning. So they were just absolutely on another level. The question here is UTSA is such a good job and has been one of the premier G5 schools now for so long. And by so long, I mean probably at least 6-7 years since basically when Traylor got there. Is it sustainable, and how do they get to that next level? And by next level, I mean, how do you continually compete in all sports with the Texases, with the A&Ms, with the Baylors, with the Houstons, with every other school that's ranked in people's minds above UTSA?
I think the short answer is you don't. You don't. Because Texas A&M, SEC schools have a completely different level of economics, which leads to the quality of players that you can attract, etc. You do the best that you can with what you've got. And that's what Jeff Traylor and Pat Hallmark and Karen Aston have done. And I think it's going to be what Austin Claunch will eventually be able to do with the basketball program on the men's side. There are some sports that are easier to compete with the big boys in. Football's really hard. Nothing against Pat Hallmark and what he's done, because he's done the unthinkable, really. But what he's doing is he's winning with older guys, and his 3-star seniors are beating 5-star freshmen. And it's a culture, and it's getting good players, and it's using the portal to your advantage, and it's working with your limited NIL budget. But it's easier to do in some sports than others. And UTSA's always had a really good track and field program. Sports like that, golf, you get 2 golfers that are out of this world, and you can beat anybody. It's really hard to do in men's basketball and football.
I was going to say it's easier in men's basketball and baseball because it takes 1 or 2 great players in those sports. Football is like you have to have the great coach. Plus, you have to have all the NIL money to get the great players. And then the great players have to stay healthy. And once the great players stay healthy, they have to buy into the coach's system. And once they do that, then they can start winning on the field. And so when you get great coaches that UTSA has, and UTSA, pound for pound, has some of the greatest coaches in the country.
Coaching.
Karen Aston,
Hallmark,
Traylor, Claunch, like their coaching is phenomenal.
Yeah, she's done a great job hiring coaches.
They have to make it to a sustainable level to where when those coaches leave or get picked off, which inevitably they will, it's sustainable afterwards.
Yeah.
Or is this era, this golden era of UTSA athletics, is this all going to come crumbling down when Texas A&M comes to steal Pat Hallmark, or when a bigger school, Arkansas, I'm just going to pick one out of the air, comes to steal Jeff Traylor, or when Baylor comes to steal Karen Aston? Like, is everything going to come crumbling down?
Depends on who they get to replace him. She's made some good hires. Pat Hallmark's one. He's only been there 4 or 5 years. Karen Aston is another. She's only been there a few years. And so Austin Claunch looks like it's a good hire. Jeff Traylor was a good hire.
Obviously,
Frank
great hire.
Wilson. Frank Wilson was a good coach and a great recruiter. Don't forget, Sincere McCormick and Rashad Wisdom and all those guys were Frank Wilson recruits. Jeff Traylor was a better culture builder and better X and O's guys. But Frank Wilson did a nice job starting that, not starting it, but taking it over from where Larry Coker left it.
UTSA is also rebranding right now. They're going through a whole change to where they're better aligning with the UT system, which could, that's where this really plays off of, right? Are they ever going to be able to compete nationally on every sport or in most sports with UT?
Nobody will unless you're in the conference with them. The separation, I think, is going to get bigger. I think the SEC and the Big Ten are going to be professional football leagues, and everybody else is going to be in a completely different division. And so unless you're one of those big boys, no, you're not going to compete with Texas A&M and UT in football on a yearly basis. No way.
Not just football, but in all sports. It's not just obviously football's the front door of the university. Is what we all hear.
You might compete with them in golf. You might compete with them in swimming, not Texas, but
yeah, Texas is really good swimming.
You might compete with them in a few sports, but that makes even what Pat Hallmark has done even that more impressive.
Is there a pathway to sustained success for UTSA?
Yes, in their conference and division. So
if the pinnacle of
winning
UTSA is winning the AAC, then yes,
they're going to do fine.
But if the goal is not
a
just
national championship,
if the goal is not just AAC,
if the goal is a national championship, no, they're not going to win national championships. Watch the baseball team.
Yeah, watch the baseball team go to Omaha and win the national championship.
I'm
playing this shot first.
They're capable.
First podcast back.
They're capable.
Yeah, Schlossnagel said so.
They're capable.
They are.
They just smacked Texas, and they were number 2 seed.
Yeah, they're going to go to UCLA and smack the Bruins around.
They could very well could.
This team's good enough to go to Omaha. This team's good enough to win the national championship.
This team is good enough to win the national championship.
But they can't win national championships.
Not a sustained. No.
Does it all just come down to money?
Let me give you a great example. You're not old enough to remember this, but Bob is. Javier is.
Damn, he called you guys old.
There used to be a school on the East Coast that didn't even have basketball. And then they started playing, and they weren't very good. They were in some BS conference. And they hired one coach who recruited one player.
You mean era?
80s.
Georgetown.
John Thompson recruited Patrick Ewing, and with one player, they were able to recruit a few more, and they became synonymous with Big East college basketball dominance. I think they went to 3 out of 4 Final Fours. Mm-hmm. And since Ewing left, they've still been a pretty good East Coast big-time basketball program. So sometimes in some sports, like you said, it only takes 1 or 2 kids to change everything. And what's unfortunate about San Antonio in basketball is we have some of those kids. Kingston Flemings, most recently. He's a national top 25 recruit. He's going to Houston, who played in the championship game this year. But if we were able to keep Kingston Flemings at home with a couple of other guys that are in that, Taylor Todd and some of these other kids that are coming behind him are also national top 100 guys. UTSA could do that in basketball, but they have to change an image. They have to change a culture.
It takes a long time to do that because, I think we forget sometimes UTSA is new.
It takes a long time to do that, or it takes one kid.
Or it takes one really, really wealthy donor.
Think about what if Shaq would have stayed home instead of gone to LSU?
Yeah. But can that also work with a coach?
Yes.
I think when you look at Frank Harris and Jeff Traylor, it took that pairing to win Conference USA titles, to get them to a new conference, to get them to accelerate that timeline that they already had. Lisa Campos and Taylor Amy had.
And look at the success they had. And Frank, Rashad, and Sincere were not top 5-star guys. They were Houston, Baylor, TCU type recruits. They weren't getting OU, Texas, Alabama, LSU. They weren't getting those guys. They were getting TCU, Houston, Baylor, and they decided to stay home together. The three of them, and they changed the culture in the program forever.
I guess my question for you is this. In the last 6 years, UTSA and the athletic programs have completely morphed. Their goals are not their goals now are not what goals UTSA 5 years ago were.
Correct.
In 5 years, will we be saying, wow, that era of UTSA athletics was really something? How can they get back to that? Or will we be saying that was the springboard to a new perennial contender, not nationally, but a nationally known team as one of those G5 teams that is always knocking on the door?
Yeah, I think football and baseball most recently have done that. People know the brand now nationally because of football and now this baseball thing that's happening right now. They're opening eyes. Like UCLA may not have paid attention to Jeff Traylor's football team, but UCLA will know who they are now with the Roadrunners going out there this weekend. So I think they will be, as a program, all sports, a perennial AAC contender and multi-champion in sports. They're not going to be in the college football playoff, in the Final Four. They're not going to they don't have the money and the NIL money to keep up with the Texases and the A&Ms when it comes to football. Basketball.
Let me make a prediction. In the next 10 years, I'll say that in the next 7 years, I think they will outgrow the AAC and they'll be in the Big 12.
Okay. I wouldn't disagree with that.
Because the Big 12 is going to get a few teams gutted, I'm sure.
Well,
to the ACC and to the Big Ten.
The SEC and the Big Ten are going to split off from everybody else. It's going to be a 30-team professional football league, and the Big 12 will be like the American.
I don't know about that.
Maybe.
Because they already have over 16 teams. It's going to be more than 30 teams anyway. Doesn't the SEC have 16 teams in it?
Yeah.
Big Ten has 16 teams in it?
Okay, whatever it is. 35 teams. 40 teams.
So
there's going to be clear separation between the teams that will, that have million NIL budgets.
It's not all about money.
Yeah, it is.
No, it isn't. Texas Tech has a lot of money, and they lost their ass in a lot of sports.
Yeah. But they're not. Yeah. They're not Texas. They're not Texas A&M.
Anything, Bob?
They're Big 12. They're not SEC.
Fred's got a couple. Fred Villarreal's got a couple. He says Big 12 requires big money, and he also says UTSA basketball was around way before UTSA football.
Yeah, and they weren't great.
What was?
UTSA basketball.
Oh, yeah. Don Eddy, 1980-81. Their first great player, Derek Gervin, George's little brother.
Hey, so are you guys happy with this this college football mess you wished for, and now you got it? Are you happy?
I didn't wish for this.
You mean the multi-team playoff?
It started when they messed up the bowl games.
No, what
I think that was the beginning. And it's just been a downhill slide since.
What I think is that the getting what was coming to them for decades, and they could have given a little bit. They could have given an inch, and instead they wouldn't give anything. And so the players went and they took a mile. And now this is what they've opened. This is the Pandora's box that the NCAA opened by not allowing boosters or teams to give cream cheese for a bagel, but you could give butter. This is what they opened by not allowing recruits to be taken out to dinner on certain occasions and having certain rules. This is what they wanted. They're getting everything that came to the NCAA.
True.
So
I concur.
All right, that's all we got for you today. Anything else, Don?
No.
Nothing on the way out?
No. Shout out UTSA. Shout out Tom Guerrero.
Shout out Tom Guerrero. Remember, download, review,
shout out
subscribe.
Ernie and Kenny and Charles and Shaq.
Give us a 5-star rating. Tell a friend. Tell an enemy. We'll be back on Thursday for more Sneakers and Cleats. See you then.